interested. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have been worthless for me to be here. Like, all right, think we're good now. So, so why was this Pensacon so like hectic for you?
Honestly, because our schedule was more full than it usually is, and it was, we would sit down and then someone else would come up, and instead of just sitting and being like, oh, it's not our time to teach anything, we were so excited about how interested people were. We would get up and give extra classes when we didn't need to. And it was just like this addictive energy that was constantly going on. So we had either that or we were rehearsing nonstop for Saturday night. And then we did an extra demonstration than we usually do every year, which was good. And then we had a performance not just Saturday night, but also Friday night. So it was like just consistently go, go, go.
What were the performances? See, I'm so locked in at the Pensacola Little Theater, I miss everything else. Okay,
so 2 years in a row now, we have been asked if we could put together a choreography. And technically it's for the not really an intermission, during the judging time of the cosplay contest, the Pensacon cosplay contest. Okay. Because they need entertainment while the judges are off doing their thing.
Yeah.
And we were asked, would that be something you're interested in? Yeah.
Lots of eyes on you.
Yeah. So first year we did, more traditional Star Wars-y stuff. Yeah, it was a representation of each fight from the Star Wars films and how our training compares to it. So it was just little performances like that. And
from each of the lightsaber battles?
For 4, 5, 6, going in order. 4, 5, 6. So the very first one was very simple. People had no idea what we were up to, and you could tell because the crowd is laughing. They had no idea what was going on. So 4, 5, 6, and then 1. And I think 1 is when people realized, when I walked out with the Saber staff, they realized what was happening.
Yeah.
And so it was 1, 2, 3, and then at the end, we actually showed what our forms look like compared to that. So the choreographies were only like 30 seconds. This year, they were upwards of 4 minutes, some of them.
Wow.
Because they were entire sections of choreography. What we did this year was, those videos that get shared on Facebook, Everything's Better with Lightsabers?
No.
Where they take scenes from TV shows and they edit the weapons to be lightsabers?
Okay.
That's what we did.
Awesome.
Only we did the budget edition. We didn't have props and costumes for it. We just did our best. And we had Princess Bride, the entire chatty duel.
Okay.
We had the
fight.
Did
you do the...
I didn't.
The dialogue part? Did they do the dialogue part?
Yeah, they did the dialogue part.
That's cool.
Yeah. You had Brienne versus Arya, Game of Thrones.
Fantastic.
And they did the dialogue for that too. Pirates of the Caribbean, When Will Meets Jack. Dialogue for that one. We had Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh, wow.
The big one that got a lot of attention outside of the chatty duel was we did the entire fight between King Arthur and the Black Knight from Monty Python.
That's fantastic. Holy cow.
And it was just stuff like that. So
that's fun.
We don't want to be a one-trick pony. We want every year to be something different. So we decided to show we're not a Star Wars group. We're just a bunch of fans. And I thought that having several fandoms represented was a good idea. So
smart.
That's what we did. And it's 9 performances. I did 3 of them.
Holy cow.
And it was definitely worth it. But we had to do that 2 nights in a row. It was exhausting.
I bet.
But fun.
I bet. Holy cow. So what's up, you guys? Thank you for coming by. I'm Jeremy, and this is Anna Faulkner. How's it going?
Going great. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm glad you stopped by. We get to talk about stuff.
I look forward to talking about stuff.
Yeah, so we were just talking a little bit about Pensacon and your role as a lightsaber, well, not just that at this point, but you are a lightsaber trainer. You just now got done with a class. Is that right?
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about this. Educate us.
Okay, so we changed our name from Gulf Coast Lightsaber Training to Gulf Coast Saber Training to make it more official, so that way it avoids any potential speed bumps.
Sure.
Everything we do is based on real world fighting styles. and it is the 7 forms. I've been doing it 5 years, and I'm only on form 5 because it takes a lot of work. We train from a group called TPLA. They are actual martial arts instructors. They've been doing this a long time. They got together and they decided to put together structured forms. We learn from them, and then we teach other people. It's a loose dojo type setting where we meet out at a park, but it's very structured. And it's just fun, a good way to get up and moving.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a couple of them, and I really enjoy spectating. I haven't actually got in there with the sabers, but I'm curious about that. When you say speed bumps, there are so many like the 501st, and there's so many like fan groups of Star Wars.
And that's just it, is one of my opening spiels. I have like a memorized opening speech if you come to training, so that way we go ahead and get any questions you might have answered immediately. And the first thing I'll tell you is, welcome to Gulf Coast Saber Training. We are not a Star Wars group. If you want a great Star Wars group, I highly recommend the 501st, the Rebel Legion, the Mandalorians. That's not us. Also, one of the big problems, you when you hear about lightsaber groups getting sued or there being any issues, it's because they took the step of making money off of what they do.
Yeah, right.
And that's something we don't touch that. That's just stay away from that. We don't use any titles. We don't use any names. We are just instructors. We're not Jedi Masters or anything that.
Sure.
I tell everyone, if you learn how to use the Force, let me know.
Yeah,
we don't teach light side, dark side. What you do on your own spare time, that's on you. And you don't even have to be a Star Wars fan to join in, because it's not a Star Wars centric group. It's definitely a bonus, but it's not a requirement to do what we do.
So it might be kind of inside baseball-y. What are the 7? It's derived from martial arts. Did you say that 7 martial arts, or is 7 different?
So in the Star Wars universe, there are 7 forms of lightsaber training.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't have all the names properly memorized.
I'm going to need you to list them out for us. No, I'm just kidding.
It was great talking to you.
Yeah.
No, so you have 7 forms, but how they have structured each of the forms, they've taken several different styles from around the world and that they've trained in. And they take elements from them and put them together into something.
I see.
If you've taken Taekwondo, for example, you're going to train years in just that one style. What we do is you're actually training several different styles, and it becomes something unique and beautiful. The first one is very aggressive, very straightforward. The second one looks much more like Tai Chi. So they start balancing themselves out. It's a lot of fun.
So when you're watching, and not Star Wars specifically, but like we talked about Game of Thrones and Monty Python and all that, are you like taking mental notes as you're watching it now?
So we also do Daghir fighting, which is the medieval fighting, and we watch a lot of HEMA videos.
What is that?
HEMA, it's the heavy European martial arts.
Okay.
It's the armored stuff, and they use long swords and everything. We like studying handheld weapon usage in general. So yeah, when you go to watch a show or a movie, you start breaking down, oh, well, this was where they got that concept from, or, oh, I like how they decided to reimagine that particular thing, or it's not practical, but that looked amazing on screen.
Sure.
So it does affect how you watch stuff.
That's kind of the Phantom Menace in a nutshell, right? It's not really all that practical, but it looks really cool on the screen.
I am definitely that person who I don't enjoy watching the breakdown videos. Well, here's why that doesn't work. It was like, it's a movie. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Sure.
I enjoy what they were trying to say, because a choreography should tell a story. It should be giving you an emotion. And if you have a fight that's just fighting for the sake of fighting, you don't have a beginning, middle, or end, that's when it becomes bland to me. But if it's flashy and it's still telling a story, I'm going to enjoy it for what it is. Like Kill Bill, completely impractical, but beautiful choreography.
Yeah, right. And I mean, I think a lot of it is almost more things in Fantasyland don't have to be practical. I mean, that's kind of the essence of what you were just now saying, is like, it doesn't have to be grounded in reality if it's in a galaxy far, far away. Like, these two things aren't, that's a false equivalency, right? But like, when I look at the Star Wars series as a whole, of course, my immediate focus would have always gone to the Darth Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fight. It's fantastic looking. And then since then, I love the throne room scene in The Last Jedi.
Dude, that was like one of my favorites.
So good, right?
We were sitting in the theater watching that, just like you could feel the face splitting wider and wider as it continued, because there were so many elements in it. One of the things that we loved about episode 7 was it went back to a more basic fighting style of survival instead of having to have the flash and glam to it. Once again, you're seeing the progression of lightsabers as a story item.
Yeah, sure.
Where you're no longer at the peak. It's once again a lost art. I really enjoyed that element to it. And then, of course, that throne room scene was just so pretty.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And I think that's kind of like, there was the criticism of the OT where their fights aren't sophisticated enough. And then there's the prequels, and it's all of a sudden, oh, the fights are too complicated. And I think what the new series has been able to do is kind of marry those two things really well.
You have a lot of armchair critics where when I start hearing people complaining about a lot,
Do tell.
I'm not expecting everyone to get up and do what they do. But as a woman who enjoys fighting, I do have that moment of, well, then you get up and try. You do it. And we're going to step away
from... Put down your Cheetos. Get up.
Well, just it's easy to criticize, and it's also easy to forget how much work that goes into it. We're going to go to another classic movie, the Princess Bride fight scene, the chatty duel. The two men in that scene practiced for months. They knew each other's parts forwards and backwards, literally. And during their breaks, they were still practicing. Even when you have 6 months to train, it is such hard work.
Sure.
A 30-second fight scene can take 6 hours to get done, as you've seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's worth every moment. So it's easy to criticize when you're not seeing what's going into it, why they did it that way. Yeah, some of the stuff's not practical, but when we're putting on a choreography on stage, we're not having to worry about where a camera's going to pan to, where the editor needs to get to, where the director envisioned something being. Choreographies have to work around that.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of the essence of like art in general. I mean, very specific to what we're talking about now, choreography, absolutely. But even when you watch a 30-second animation, like how many frames of drawings is that?
Yeah.
How many hours worth of labor, and it really is easy to, criticizing is the easiest part. That's the part that takes the least amount of time, the least amount of effort, the least amount of energy and all of that. But it also seems to be like that unified voice can so easily dictate whether or not we have an appreciation for this art that obviously people have put so much time and energy into. And I think it's kind of fascinating, and I kind of want to touch on a couple of things. I was wondering, like, The Last Jedi wasn't a thing last Pensacon, right?
not really.
It hadn't come out yet, had it?
Oh,
well,
yeah.
wait. Yeah, it came out in December. So has there been a... do people seem resentful towards the Star Wars name by any chance now?
Not with us.
Okay.
We haven't had any blowback from that. If anything, we've had more people interested because of the films. And we are a very neutral place to come into because we don't allow arguments like that. You're not going to destroy someone else's love of something because you had an issue with it. You can leave that outside of the training group. In the training group, if that inspired you, good. Hold on to that and bring it in. But we haven't had any issue with that kind of negativity, so which is a good thing. Yeah,
it is. And I think typically they'll say that it behind the keyboard. They won't, if they have a problem with it, they're not going to come to you and say it, most likely. No. And that's a good thing. Like you said, it's like you would rather not have to be confronted with that kind of stuff, but there's a little bit of toxicity, and maybe it's just, again, because of my life experience. Maybe I spent too much time on the internet, not real sure, but it does seem like, I don't want to say specifically The Last Jedi was the start of it, because I know there have been things around that, but this whole idea of like inclusion equaling like a racist propaganda, like some bigger scheme to like demobilize white. I don't know exactly what it is, but I mean you've seen it online.
Oh yes, I've been subject to it. once again, as a woman who fights, I'm very much told that I should not be offended. But actually, let me tell you. So I'm a part of several different saber groups, and I will post videos of my work. And I will receive, and I have this pet peeve. If someone didn't ask for advice, don't give it. If they're saying, hey, what can I do better? And it could be costuming. I'll see people, hey, I'm really excited about this. That's nice. Next time you need to do this. And immediately I'm like, did they ask you?
Yeah, right. I get it.
It's like sucking the wind out of their sails. So I will post videos dressed in a cosplay or something and playing with a lightsaber. And you wouldn't really fight wearing heels like that.
Of course.
And it's like, I literally just did it.
Yeah.
And they're telling me why it's impractical. That was nice, but maybe next time do this. So in fairness, I'll be, instead of immediately, oh, you're just saying that because I'm a woman, I'll go through and see how they comment on other people's stuff. And you can see someone, it's their first video. They don't even know how to hold the weapon properly, and good for them for getting up and trying. But that same person will comment, dude, I'm expecting great things from you. Good job.
Yeah.
Not giving them the same, well, maybe next time you should do this.
And it's a dude telling you that you shouldn't wear heels in the video. Yikes. It's like, how do you know? You know what I mean? You ever fought in heels before? Shut up.
I don't care if someone is just giving me advice and they do it to someone else, but saying, well, it's not because you're a woman, but the moment you have to add that, it is totally because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And you're right. I feel like there's this fear of change is really what it boils down to. People get so used to how things have been. Humans love patterns. We love things staying consistent. And I think what we forget is something like Star Wars, it has always been this thing. It has always been something of inclusion. And I think fans do a disservice to the creators of what they love by demanding it stay one way. Or I think one of the downfalls for the newer Star Wars movies isn't even the rage they claim. It's the fact that their fan fiction wasn't what they used.
Yes, and they don't understand that no two peoples are necessarily going to be the same.
Yeah, and I everyone asked me what was your favorite part of the Star Wars movie. I was like, all the fanboys being wrong. Every single one of them.
I think that's why I like The Last Jedi so much. Yeah.
And it's, if you happen to guess correctly, great, but we spend so much time speculating. We spend so much time trying to guess what's going to happen instead of just enjoying the ride. And I really feel like that's where the rage comes from. This
They're projecting
ownership.
their expectations onto this.
They have this ownership of a fandom that they didn't create.
Yeah.
And this idea of ownership and, well, I'm a better fan than you, you realize that you're actually doing the opposite of what the creator would want. They want everyone to enjoy this. You're supposed to be an ambassador. Oh, you're new to the fandom. Here, you might like this. You may not like the animated stuff or the original. Here's the new series.
Yeah.
It may not be your cup of tea, but there's something for everyone.
And I think there's value to that side of it as well. Is like, I can be a fan of something and still have problems within that fandom. Yes, maybe I would have handled it a different way.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can like a 90-minute movie for 75 of those minutes, and if 15 minutes don't work for me for whatever that reason is, that's valid as long as it's not taking your own biases and projecting them onto other people. I feel like because entertainment has so predominantly been white for so long, there is a bit of a pushback for it. And I spoke with Ray a minute ago about Miles Morales versus Peter Parker, and how I can understand if for 4 decades your Spider-Man was Peter Parker, maybe you don't even associate the race thing with it. Maybe it's genuinely because the only Spider-Man you ever knew was Peter Parker, and now all of a sudden it's this Miles Morales guy.
But then you have those same fanboys who claim to know everything about the character. It's like, then you should have known this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Ray for a second. He probably didn't talk about this, and he should have. So I recently did an event with him where he dresses as Spider-Man, and oh my God, guys, it was like kids lining up to see Santa Claus.
Yeah.
The way they hugged him, they would come up and start asking him personal questions like, hey, so when this happened, what did you do? Like, wanting secrets from the movie.
That's awesome.
And Ray stayed in character the whole time. It was so flipping sweet, just kids attached to him. And then you would see teenagers like waiting for the kids to clear out, and then they'd come over. So I was just kind of wanting to say I really like your character and how much you mean to me. And you're just going, oh,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it is important. Representation is so important. And it's easy, any situation. When you have no experience having dealt with it, it is easy to discredit why it's important to have those characters.
I hate to even reduce it down to this, but as a white heterosexual male, representation has never been an issue. It's an expectation, right?
But you're open to the idea of
right,
it.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's, I understand why people may feel like maybe it's not as organic to take a moniker like Spider-Man and assign it to a new character but when they've got so much legacy and so much brand awareness around them already, it opens it up to a huger audience to where, yes, you may be able to invent a new character that doesn't have all of that heat behind them, and maybe it'll catch fire, maybe everybody will love this new character, but there's already a built-in love of the character Spider-Man. So by doing the race or the gender swap, it all of a sudden takes a familiar icon and allows that icon to be more relatable to your personal experience.
Absolutely. And even for those of us where it may not, like you said, the not being able to exactly connect with that character because we haven't had those experiences, seeing the kids around you and their reactions and just being able to connect with them on a human level, that is a powerful experience. We're going to use a different movie. When I found out there was going to be a Black Panther film, I freaked out. I have loved that character for years. And what bugged me were the amount of people who were shocked that I was excited about that film. I was like, why? Well, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything to you, does it? I love the character!
Yeah. So
the moment he popped up in another movie, I'm squealing. And just people didn't get it. And he's a great character.
100%.
Just period. And there's a lot of that where you can love a character and it not have any impact for you, but please respect that impact it has for someone else.
Again, coming from a place of privilege, I acknowledge, but I personally identified with Ellen Ripley, so like there is again with you with Black Panther, with me, it's like I am able to step outside of myself and share these experiences vicariously with people on the screen, even if they don't have the same color skin as me, even if they're not the same gender as me, and there's value in that. But again, that's coming from like this default position where I expect that most everything else is going to be this other thing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I get to do a very interesting episode where we're talking about all the juicy subjects.
Yeah, we've done a bit of it with other ones.
I think that the whole privilege issue, what it boils down to, especially when it comes to fandom, is there's this fear of, and kids deal with this more, but we're adults. We shouldn't be dealing with this. There's this difficulty in separating actions and person. You as a person are fine. Your behavior is a problem. And we need to acknowledge that mentioning the word privilege, I'm not attacking you as a person. I just need you to acknowledge this is a thing. And when we learn, hey, it hasn't affected me, that's a sign of it, instead of going, well, I didn't do anything wrong. No one's saying you did.
Yeah, right.
We're trying to get you to acknowledge, hey, there is a problem though. What can you do to help? And we're going to bring up the movie everyone wants to talk to me about. Good. It actually deals with Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel to me...
I thought we were going to say It Chapter 2.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm here for.
My bad.
But one of the... not going to give any spoilers, but one of the big draws to me for that film is Carol is hit with, you've been a part of this system. You now see the problem of it. What is your choice? And it could be, well, it's not my fault. I didn't know. It's not my problem. Or are you going to do something about it? And she decides to do something. And I think that's the... out of all of the elements people try to throw out there, oh, this is preaching feminism. Did I do that right? I thought that was a good impersonation. I thought that was a very powerful message. Are you going to sit back and allow something to continue, or are you going to actively try to help fix things that you know you were a part of?
Right.
I thought that was amazing.
That's a good point, that I didn't even think about it from that perspective. Like, I that's a whole different valuable lesson to pull from that movie. And I everybody's viewing experience is just, it's profoundly different, and I can't begin to speak to the way that other people experience things. All I know is that before Captain Marvel came out, I had this idea about the kind of people that were like boycotting the movie, and I had this really specific, it was like, fuck these guys, right? that was my whole thing. Is like, who are you? You haven't seen the movie, you're sitting here speaking about it and boycotting it because of what one person said that you may not agree with. Again, check your privilege. Well, nobody's ever given me money for being white. Well, have you ever been pulled over before? Did they drag you out of the car and search your freaking car down, or did they not? And that's privilege. You know what I mean? It's not what
absolutely.
You're given. And so I was really irritated at these alt-right nutbags, right? And then I saw the movie, and you probably saw my tweet or my post on Facebook. I didn't love the movie. But I feel like what happens is, in this very divisive time for fandom, is like, I feel like by even putting that out there, I had to go see it a second time to make sure that I wasn't wild about it, because I don't want to contribute to that noise. But do you think that there's still a place for criticism when the social stuff gets pushed so far out front?
I think that one of the big problems is actually the sites that promote movies. They will pick up on a social issue to try to sell their page and blow it up. Let's take the live action Beauty and the Beast, where it was a smidgen of a moment and they blew it up. So you had people boycotting the film, and then when you watch it, it's kind of a wink wink nudge nudge moment.
Yeah, sure.
It is the same thing. If you want to say that feminism was shoved in your face in Captain Marvel, okay, well, one of the things that I didn't even click on, but my husband brought up was, it was kind of nice the fact that they didn't have the obligatory her getting changed scene.
Yeah.
Like, right? Mm-hmm. You didn't have a romantic interest. You don't have those normal formulas that main female characters end up with, where it's the travel up the body with the camera thing, and it just kind of takes power away from a moment. I feel like those social media pages prey on small moments of victory and turn mountains into molehills, and that brings out people who, without reading the article, without having seen the movie, jump on their self-righteous train. And then if you bring up a good point, politely saying, well, I mean, you haven't seen the movie. Are you trying to say I'm wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, are you some kind of social justice warrior? And I don't get it. We're from a generation where we were pushing back against being told stuff.
Yeah.
And now we're acting like spoiled brats.
Yeah.
So I feel that there is contributing factors in trying to take social justice things and make it a forefront, or things that should be normalized. Gay characters should be normal in a movie. They should be celebrated. Transgender, whatever. But these pages take and they plaster it, even if it's a mention in the film. And it abuses the people that it's supposed to reach out to, promising them something that kind of feels empty. And then it serves to fuel hate from these groups that don't deserve a platform.
That's 100% valid. I could not agree more. But on that same note, do you think that Kevin Feige and Brie Larson contributed to pushing it as a feminist movie as opposed to pushing it as a movie?
I think people breathed into it what they wanted, because people forget that feminism isn't I am better than you because of how I was born or identify. It is equality.
Equality, simple. Yeah.
And the scenes in the movie that bring up the sexist notions, the misogynistic notions, those are all things that we can agree on, that some of us have dealt with. You can't do that because you're a woman. But not once in the movie do any of the female characters say, I can do A, B, and C better than you because I'm a woman. Sure. That is toxic femininity. You have toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. There was not an ounce of that where when they made a good scientific point, they didn't go, oh, You didn't know that? I guess it's because you're a guy.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything like that in the film. If there had been, then yes, Brie Larson and the director would have contributed to a toxic fandom.
I felt that it was posited that way. Kevin Feige handed it over to Brie Larson and said, "Here is your feminist movie." And I don't know how 100% true that is. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
I still agree with what you're saying, that feminism is equality, and that we have this idea that being a social justice warrior has a negative connotation. Being a feminist, they all, to some people, it's like it's radicalized. It's like, no, we're just trying to normalize it. Like
once again, it breaks out of that social structure. I was actually anti-feminist when I was younger because I wasn't taught what it was. I was raised in a very conservative family. I was raised in a bubble where this is just how it is. And it wasn't until I started dating and the person I ended up marrying started going, you can stand up for yourself, right? That's okay. And I didn't understand some of the stuff people were mad at, and it had to be explained to me because it was foreign.
Right.
And I know that feels like it has nothing to do with it, but it took me learning about it. If you're talking about the media blitz stuff that created all this controversy, I didn't really pay attention to a lot of it. So I had to look it up. When people were calling her a racist and a sexist, I was like, oh my God, what happened? And I read it and I'm just, really? This is the hill you decided to fight your battle on?
Yeah, no joke.
Once again, mountains out of molehills.
I agree. Yeah, we're on the same page about stuff. I have to probe just because
No,
it's what
by
I
all
do.
means.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Do you though?
I do,
okay,
actually.
Good. It's 100%
as long as I'm not sounding like I'm rambling and I'm actually like...
No, there's value in it. I think it's important. This is not a conversation I want to have with my buddy Caleb, for example. I don't feel like we bring...
you mean not a bunch of guys talking about how women feel?
Yeah, right. 100%. Everybody can bring something to the equation, but you really do need to have the perspective that you're not familiar with.
And I'm part of a niche group that connected with that movie in a different way because, as an asexual woman, I enjoyed not having a romance story. I don't need that driven. Seeing her actually get dirty and them not edit her skin to be flawless. That was one of the issues I had with Wonder Woman, for example, was they still needed her to look manicured. Brie Larson gets dirty in the film. I like doing my makeup, I like my shoes, but I like a good fight too.
Right.
When it's appropriate, when I'm in training. But you have a scene where she's fighting barefoot, and I'm like, that's my kind of woman, because I train barefoot. And you have a woman who fights, and it's just what she does. And there's a niche group of women like me where we finally have a hero. Now, you have another demographic in that movie that I can't connect to, but I got to see their reaction in theater. I walked in dressed as this character, and it was a lot of people like, okay, she's in a costume. That's weird. And at the end of the film, and not even during the end, you heard kids in the audience going, hey, she's just like me, talking about the little girl. And that made me tear up. And while I'm watching that movie and I'm seeing this woman who I can connect with because she's not the stereotype that media constantly gives us, it's like, wow, I'm finally represented too. And then at the end of the film, you had these kids running up to me and hugging me, and their parents asking for photos with me. And that showed me what the movie meant to them. I'll admit, it's not my favorite Marvel movie. It wasn't a great, mind-blowing film. You have your Marvel formula. There's a fight on a train, on the roof of a vehicle. And my joke is, there was still your superhero light beam. It just happened to be Miss Captain Marvel.
Good call.
Back to Miss Marvel. My bad. But even if I walked out going, well, that's not the Carol Danvers movie I wanted, seeing what it meant to this group of kids and a group of people who don't feel represented, that was everything. Yeah.
And that's that idea of like I'm an equal opportunity hater. I'm going to crap on it regardless if I don't like it. You know what I mean?
No, I'm not going to defend something that's not good. Like the first 10 minutes of the movie, I started getting worried.
You said, I saw your post about that, and then as I was watching the movie, I was like, it's different when it's Neo and Trinity because we've spent time with those characters. The
I felt that's the
thing.
first scene felt out of place. Like, we have no idea who they are. Why are we supposed to care about this? And this is sort of spoiler territory, but it's not, because I'm not going to give specifics. When you get to the end and it all comes back and she has nothing to prove. That moment, it's okay, I see why that's there. I feel like there could have been a little more explanation, because that entire ride to get to the Supreme Intelligence and everything, I'm just sitting there going, I know this from the comic, but you aren't explaining anything right now.
That's a really good point, though. Thematically, it bookends the story.
But my problem with people who dislike the movie, you are allowed to dislike a movie. No one's saying you have to like it. My problem is their wording. Your words are powerful. If you come on my page, for example, and I even say all hate talk will be deleted, because you have people that will just hate something to hate it. And your only criticism is, it was a boring, steaming pile of poo. That's not real criticism.
Right.
You could say, it's not my cup of tea, or I didn't like it. And then you can post your opinion on your page all you want.
100%.
But when you have people just being negative for the sake of being negative, I think that's the bigger problem. They're not giving critique. They're just, well, Captain Marvel sucks because A, B, and C. And you're reading the reasons, like, then technically you shouldn't like Iron Man.
It's fair. And even the little girl at the end is very much like the boy in Iron Man 3, and people were talking about the feminism angle with the girl in Captain Marvel. That kind of stuff never came up in Iron Man 3.
No,
nobody
it didn't.
ever batted an eye at that. And I think, so is it toxicity or is it ignorance? And are those the same thing?
I think toxicity, it comes from a place of ignorance. Because you're so busy in an echo chamber, even if it's your own little chat room that you've created, you have surrounded yourself with an ideal that is yours without ever checking facts, reality, other people's opinions, anything.
Me and you too? Everybody, or just certain people? What do you think?
Do you watch Philip DeFranco? Okay. I very much believe in what he has to say. And one of the things that he talks about is, if you only ever listen to things that agree with you, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And also, if you're going to say things about this guy over here you don't like, think about if someone said it about this guy over here you do like. Would you be okay with it? And I feel like fandom needs to do that. If you're going to watch Captain Marvel and you're going to pitch and moan about something, would you say the same thing about Iron Man or Doctor Strange? Would you be okay with someone bad-mouthing them the same way? And behind a keyboard, people say, oh yeah, I'd be fine with it. No, you wouldn't. Because I've tested that theory on people.
Yeah, it's a lot different saying it to somebody.
I hope that answered your question.
No, it did.
Because I don't believe in echo chambers. You have to step outside of your norm. And it is uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. Every time.
That's very valid. And I do really respect Philip DeFranco for that. And in fact, if I'm engaging in a debate, an argument, whatever you want to call it, with somebody, and I know that they're conservative, the last thing that I'm going to do is go pull an article from CNN or from NPR and try to present that as evidence. The first thing that I'm going to do is go check the conservative place and be like, hey, this is your unbiased view of media. I'm not going to use the Lion, whatever, New York Times or whatever.
You don't find Daily Mirror to be a valid point? What?
But yeah, it just feels like there's this idea that we all, I think in our own experience, in our own life, we're all in a bubble. Not necessarily an echo chamber, but we can only base things on the experiences we have. So there's these people that are in really rural areas. Maybe they were never taught the proper meaning of feminism. Maybe they don't have any people of color in their own personal life. And I don't know, is it more constructive to just call them out on it, or is it more constructive to try and educate people and say, hey, like, you're coming from a place of ignorance, you know?
So no one likes to be yelled at. I think we all get to that Peanuts point where it's wah, 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 wah. No one likes being yelled at. And no matter how tough you may feel like behind that keyboard, would you like that same energy redirected at you?
Sure.
I will never swear at someone when I'm having a conversation. I may use swear words, but I'm not going to call you a name.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I wouldn't want that done to me. And this idea of, well, I'm just going to do this because it makes me sound good. No one stops and thinks that whole, what you're doing, would you want that?
Yeah, right.
And it applies to everything. And when you say the whole, well, maybe they just don't know, I was raised that way. It was a very cult-like mentality. And when I came out of it, it was scary. It was honestly scary. And if someone had yelled at me, it might have pushed me back because this is familiar. This is what I know.
I see what you're saying.
When you have a group of people who scream and they yell and they call it activism and they call it positive growth, okay, once again, you're still not viewing it from where they're coming from. You've been so comfortable over here, it's uncomfortable that they're actually giving you a chance to talk to them. And you want to use that time to yell at them.
Yeah.
I actually have a recent story that I know you saw. I'm going to go over it here. We were at Ren Fair, and we're walking around, having a good time, and we stop for a break. And I'm dressed in Galadriel. And, you know, people are stopping and asking for photos, so I give them a pose, and there's this guy who makes a joke about how a girl yelled at him for taking photos without asking. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's a really crap thing to do. You don't do that. And I just went, didn't want to talk to him anymore. But the little girl who is with us goes, that's not okay. You need consent to do that. She's not a cosplayer. This is common sense to the 12-year-old. And he looks taken aback. Like, how dare this child speak? And I said, well, she's right. We would prefer it if you asked for photos. Why? And this is where you reach a crossroads. You can yell at the guy. Like, how is this not common sense? Would you want someone coming up and taking photos of you without asking? I wouldn't listen to you if you did that.
Right.
So it was, well, I can give you a pose and it will actually look nice. I might be busy trying to eat. I might be busy doing something else. So not everyone wants photos all the time.
Yeah.
Well, don't you get tired of people stopping and asking you like 1,000 times? No, because I'd rather give you a good photo. So he turns and he leaves. The next day, I'm dressed in my belly dancer Merida, and we're having to tear everything down early because of the storms that were moving in. And the guy comes walking up. And my initial reaction was, oh no. But instead, he's telling the guys at my table, hey, that young lady over there, I got a photo of her yesterday, and I was wondering if I could get another one today. Completely different tone. He wasn't being loud. He wasn't being rude like he was the day before. And they said, well, you're going to need to talk to her. Okay, I'll wait. So I finished tearing it down, and I walk over. I said, can I help you? I was wondering if I could get a photo today. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't yell at him.
Dialogue totally changed.
Exactly. But if you're feeling uncomfortable, I'm not saying don't defend yourself. If someone is taking a photo of you without your permission, by all means, stand up. But if you're going to teach someone, no one likes being yelled at. And that, to me, was a great example of seeing it actually, that beginning, middle, end.
And
seeing him
out.
actually taking what I said to heart. So people can change if you give them a chance. But if they're not going to, also don't give them a pedestal to stand on. Don't keep arguing with them. You're going to keep them going.
Yeah, 100%. That it never de-escalates in that way.
No.
So, were you brought up in a religious household?
Oh, yeah. I'm from a preacher family.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Preacher
Victoria,
military.
My wife is also from a very religious family. And I wonder, like, I mean, this is a whole different can of worms, but, like, archaic religion structures, like, women aren't necessarily top of the totem pole in a lot of the big books, you know what I mean?
It also depends on what part of the country you're from. So I lived overseas for a little bit, so our church services were done via TV because we didn't have any congregations where we lived.
Where were you at?
Australia.
Okay.
So we moved to the States, and we moved deep South Georgia. I got made fun of a lot because I spoke like an Australian. And then we moved to Colorado and lived there for a very long time and went to church there. It was we would have games called Devil's Advocate. Okay, try to teach someone, but they're an atheist. And it wasn't viewing an atheist as a bad guy. It's you have 10 minutes before the world ends, try to help them. And they wanted you to go full gusto with it. And I would make people so angry because I always got picked to play the atheist. And it was teaching people don't get angry because someone's different than you. and women were very included in what was going on. We still didn't have women preachers in our church. We didn't even have music in our church. But when I moved south, the first class I went to was, the workbook was how to be a good housewife.
Wow.
And I was like,
wow.
Really? I ended up getting kicked out of class, by the way. But I would bring up ideas like, hey, maybe we could try this. And I got taken aside saying, you need to stop talking.
Step in line.
I was in the 7th grade, and they're telling me, you need to stop. We don't do things like that here. I was trying to do stuff to get the youth more involved, and we need to have debates, and we need to really work on it. No, you're messing up our status quo.
Right.
This is how it is. But it also got to the point where there was a secondary church literally across the train tracks, and we would go over there, and it was the not white congregation.
Mm-hmm.
So we go over there. We get called by family. Why didn't you go to church today? We did. You went to Fifth Avenue? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you go to real church today? And it was
Wow.
just... So it's a lot more dominant in the South, I think, where you have these structures, depending on the religion.
Mm-hmm.
But you have
I was brought up Southern Baptist.
Oh, well, then you were my arch nemesis.
What is it?
Church of Christ.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for sure. I walked away from the church relatively early because of bigotry, unfortunately. And I know that that's not necessarily a Christian experience, but it's a very church experience, I think, in a lot of places.
Then you understand what it's like. When you walk away from church, you get these New Age church types that tell you, well, my church isn't like that. And it's like, you know how many times I've heard that?
Yeah.
What really was the nail in the coffin for me for not going back was taking my little ones. I wanted so desperately, you know what it's like when you walk away from church, there's that empty part of you that feels like you've done something wrong and you want to fix it. You're desperately trying to be that good Christian. So I was like, oh, I'll take my kids. And I sit in the class with them, and the lady is singing a song about the husband goes to work, the husband goes, and then the wife cleans the house. I was like, and we're done.
Yeah.
It wasn't about Bible stories. It was about keeping that structure. And I realized this is not how I want to be. This is not who I am. And I had already been drifting away since I was a teen. And it's not a hatred. It's not an anger. It's a realizing I am a good person because I'm a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And that deals with fandom too. You know, I choose not to be a troll because I don't need to be. That doesn't prove my fandom. Mm-hmm. When you have anyone who's aggressive for anything they stand for, whether it's religion, politics, fandom stuff, that says everything about them. That has nothing to do with the majority of it. I have plenty of friends who are Christian. I have plenty of friends who are pagan, who are atheists. Mm-hmm. And they are great representations of that thing, but it doesn't make up their whole being.
Right.
So
yeah, for sure. We're all so multifaceted.
Yeah.
And then once you start defining people by these simple exterior categorizations of who you are, and I think that's, in my mind, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I think a lot of racism just comes from a lack of real life, like, one-on-one connection with somebody to say, holy shit, we have the same wants, the same needs.
Yeah.
We are, like, really, really more the same than we are different. And I don't know how you reconcile that. I don't know how you take a person out of, I don't even want to say a place, and transplant them into another environment. I mean, it's not practical in a lot of ways, but I just, like, I try to look at them as like, oh, they're missing out. Not like, I don't know how to better articulate that, but not that they are necessarily a bad person, but that one part of them, again, for these multifaceted beings, and there's so much more to them than just this one archaic view or this one simple misunderstanding, or maybe they just haven't had a chance to be enlightened yet.
And it is a very sensitive topic to bring up, because there is a good way to do it and a bad way to do it, because you have those people that will immediately do there were Irish slaves. It's like, oh, did you just miss the point?
Yeah.
It's not well, we had bad things happen too. Listen to what they're telling you. Mm-hmm. There are things that we will never comprehend, that we don't have in our history, that other people are still dealing with. We seem to forget that only 50 years ago, 40 years ago, now, there are still things happening to groups of people we will never have to deal with.
Yep. Yeah.
And we tend to look at only our own soil, but when you look at other countries and what they're dealing with, little groups that have problems, and it's just heartbreaking seeing what happens to them. And you know that there is literally nothing you can do to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that is a form of privilege. You know you didn't do anything to put them in that position. You literally have nothing to do with that situation. But that doesn't mean you can't be empathetic to what they're dealing with. You can't
absolutely.
feel for them. And not a distance, well, that's so sad. Thoughts and prayers. But actually raise awareness. Hey, this is an issue. This is a problem. That is what you're supposed to do with your privilege. That is what you're supposed to do as a good person. Hey, people are dealing with this. Let's get the word out. Let's do something. Let's get over ourselves and work together to make things better.
So is it nihilistic to wonder if the power is always going to want to maintain the power, and the people that don't have the power are always going to want to obtain that power? So is there ever like a utopia? Like, is there a future where there's no conflict, or does the conflict?
Do you remember the Utopia mouse experiment?
No.
Look that up sometime.
Oh, okay.
It won't work. The mice ended up like killing themselves. Guy set up a utopia for these rodents.
Interesting.
And it didn't work because human nature is to be competitive. That's why communism looks good on paper, but in reality it doesn't work, and it actually hurts the people it's supposed to help.
Very good point.
Human nature, someone is going to want to push farther than someone else. The problem is that we allow the people that do that in kind of a negative way to have the louder voice, to be an example that doesn't represent the rest of us, and the rest of us are sitting back going, well, nothing's ever going to get better. We have that same chance. We can do that same thing.
Yeah.
We tell ourselves, well, nothing's worth it. And it's easy to be nihilistic. I am what's called the happy pessimist.
Uh-huh.
It means I believe that everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and if it doesn't, I'll be that much happier.
Uh-huh. There you go.
So, but if it does go badly, I won't be surprised. I'm not going to feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
But human nature is competitive. And that's a good thing. It's how we've survived. It's how we keep going. But that nature was designed for gathering food, for continuing our species, for having a safe place to sleep, getting away from predators. We don't need that part anymore. Why aren't we evolving, adjusting, and using that energy to help others?
So is this new tribalistic bullshit just like an evolution of that old competitive? Like, now that we don't have to compete for shelter, now that we don't have to compete for food, now that like our material or our actual needs are met, now we've just got nowhere else to go other than just squabble about dumb stuff.
We don't know what to do with that energy. I love this conversation. We don't know what to do with that energy. And we have so many people pulling us in so many directions, and we get caught up in mob mentality where one person says something that sounds even remotely like how we feel, and we're like, yeah, that's who I am now.
Yeah, 100%.
That sounds exactly like how I'm feeling. I'm going to throw all of my energy into this bullshit group because I finally feel a community.
Mm-hmm.
And you get so caught up in that community feel, you're not playing checks and balance. There's no introspection. There's no one saying, hey, so that thing you're talking about that you like, I'm not okay with that, because I'm going to go, well, you're not one of us then, and you need to go. Too much patting on the back and fluffing each other up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that energy, that competitive energy, and it becomes like this roiling group that doesn't know what it actually wants, but thinks it does because it has a clever catchphrase to go with it.
Sure.
I do think that the online community has really helped with that, because we don't know what to do with this energy anymore. We really don't. And it's so easy to get comfortable but still spew things with that ability, instead of, okay, that 5 minutes you just spent arguing with some stranger on Facebook, could you have taken time to educate yourself?
Right.
That's 5 minutes you could have spent reading and studying and understanding. But no, you just had to get that last word in before you blocked them. Ooh, aren't you amazing?
Yeah.
You showed them. And
it's so bad.
It becomes
I still
a
fall
mess.
into it.
I don't And, you know, I don't hate social media. I know I sound like I do. I sound like such a pessimist. I used to be isolated. I didn't know how to make friends. I didn't know how to talk to people. And I still feel like this is really not going to help me.
This?
But, yeah.
You're killing it.
People are going to go, oh my God.
No, I don't know.
But Facebook was like Rosetta Stone for me. I started learning how people talk, what works, what doesn't work, what makes me uncomfortable, what makes other people uncomfortable. And I started translating that to the real world. Not, you know, the exact language from that, but reading comments, how people interacted, seeing what made my skin crawl, what was like, oh, well, you know, good for you. You worded that really well. And it helped me learn how to talk to people. Yeah. That's what social media should be. It's a way of sharing ideas, sharing conversations, things that mean something to you. Like, I don't get annoyed if Cheryl shares her recipe of the day. That brought her joy. Or Nancy over there shared she got a new haircut. Good for you. Or Bob got a new action figure he's proud of. That made him happy. You don't have to crap on something because it made someone else happy. You can go about your merry business. It is supposed to be a community builder, and I really feel like it still can be. We just need to stop giving negativity a platform.
That's a really good point, and I should reel way back and say, I think that even these Star Wars fans that we're talking about, even they're just so much louder. They don't necessarily, they're not more of them. It's not like the majority of Star Wars fans are toxic. It's far from that. It's just this small little group of them that just
it really is a small
louder
group
than everybody else. And the same with Captain Marvel. Like, if this were really the kind of issue that in my world it seems to have been, the movie wouldn't have made freaking gangbusters opening weekend. Like,
yeah, as much as people said that the amount of money it made was in rebellion against the negativity, I don't think so, because we've seen plenty of movies where people were rebelling against the negativity and it still did poorly at the box office compared to what it was projected to do. I just think we need to stop giving any real levity towards like things like Rotten Tomatoes. They can be valuable to look at, but when you have something that has any form of controversy around it, stop viewing that as the end all to prove your point. I've seen people, oh, see, this movie sucks because it said this on Rotten Tomatoes. Or if their movie that they loved did badly, oh, well, Rotten Tomatoes isn't reliable. You can't use that. It's like, you can't do that. You can't use it one way and then the other. That's not how this works.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, and I always keep coming back around to it, that we're just kind of oblivious. Like, we as human beings are just kind of not aware of our own biases.
I think we are aware. We just choose to ignore it. Because if you bring it up to someone, no, I'm not. You should have gotten past that by, like, I don't know, 12.
Yeah, right.
And if you have a calm reaction to something, oh, you're trying to be a know-it-all. I love the people who I will talk about how I love a character. Like Captain Marvel. Oh, yeah, well, did you know this is this? I was like, I can use Wikipedia too.
Yeah.
Google's your friend. Or weaponizing fandom. That's the other thing I dislike. Like the upcoming movie Shazam. I hate how people are trying to weaponize it against Captain Marvel. It's like, hey guys, some of us like both.
Yeah, right.
I identify with Marvel more with its heroes due to the fact that they are more human. DC, I like their villains more because they're more human. Whereas the DC heroes are gods being human. That phrase is very true. It doesn't mean I don't like them. I think Marvel has found a fantastic formula for live action. DC reigns supreme in animation and will 100%. Always. There are only a handful of Marvel animated stuff that were good at the time, but you go back and watch it again and it doesn't hold up. You can go back and watch Batman the Animated Series and still freak out and fangirl over.
Yeah, all that stuff.
But there seems to be this, you either like one or the other. I had one person, I was talking about a DC thing and how much, like, it was Suicide Squad, okay? Everyone knows how I feel about that.
I'm just gonna not say anything.
Well, I was being polite about it because if it meant something to you, once again, I'm glad you felt something.
Yeah, right.
I got halfway through the movie, we paused and I said, oh my God, it's almost done, thank God. And I wasn't looking at how much time was left, and my husband goes, we're only halfway through. I was like, I need another screwdriver.
Yeah.
But because I wasn't saying anything like, well, it sucked because of this. I said, well, I didn't like it because of. And I feel statements, not it is bad because. And this person said, well, you're wearing a Marvel hat, so it's not like you're unbiased or anything. I was like, are you really using my clothing?
Yeah.
I was wearing a Mr. Meeseek sweater. You going to bring that up too? And it's how defensive people get.
It's tribalism,
It
right?
is. And it goes with everything. And yet, if you're somewhere in the middle of, okay, I can see why you didn't like it, but here's why I liked it.
Yeah.
Oh, Doctor Who is another one of those fandoms. Jodie Whittaker being announced. I'm not saying it's because she's a woman, but it's because she's a woman.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'll admit, I was anti-woman doctor until I actually saw the clips from the show. And I was like, okay, I can go behind this. I was that... But Doctor Who has a cycle.
Doctors.
Doctor Who has a cycle where it's, I like this doctor. It's the best doctor ever. Oh no, they're leaving. I hate this doctor. And you just go through the cycle every time they change. I'm not going to defend everything about Doctor Who, because fans don't have to love every single aspect of something to be a fan of it. But you do need to respect that it means something to someone. Doctor Who has enough of a history to where there is literally a doctor for everyone. But like with Star Wars, how old they are, things are going to have changed. So many generations are going to be affected by it. Like, for me, it's weird having people tell me that their first introduction to Star Wars was when they were a kid and they're watching Clone Wars. And I'm like, oh my God. And I didn't like Clone Wars, but it brought them into the Star Wars universe. Good for them. And I didn't come to that conclusion on my own. It was actually, you know Lavon, right? Okay. It was hearing her talk about it where suddenly I realized I was being that asshole fan. And it was, wow, you're right. It may not be my cup of tea, but seeing those fans come in and now they enjoy it too, that's what fandom's about. I was open to that change. I was open to hearing somebody talk about it instead of, no, it just sucks. The writing's terrible. The animation's stinky. I don't like it.
If you were to post, me and you are friends on Facebook.
Yes.
If I were to post something negative about, we'll use Captain Marvel as an example. If I were to post something negative about that, separate from you, and you were to read it, would you feel like that was an attack on you?
Well, if you were vague booking in a way to where it felt directed at me?
No. Definitely not that.
Okay, so no. And this is one of those situations where you have to be careful answering, because it's very easy to say, no, of course I wouldn't. But to actually sit and think, one, it depends on what you're saying about it. But I have the option to scroll past, and that's your opinion. That is what you have to say. If you're like, well, if you like Captain Marvel, then you're a big stupid dum-dum.
Totally different, because like you said, language matters so much.
It does.
And you can't, I'm objective enough to never say, oh, okay, I give this movie a 2 out of 5, and then somebody's like, oh, I was going to go see it. I will be the first to say, if you're interested in it, if you're curious whether it's good or not, you should go see it, because your experience could be totally different from mine. I'm not the end-all, be-all on taste. What do I know about taste? You know what I mean?
A lot, Jeremy. That's why we watch your channel. Subscribe to his channel.
All right, your check's in the mail.
But... So it really does depend on what you're saying, but honestly, I see all the time posts that I disagree with from a lot of people where I value their opinion. And I scroll past because I have no need to participate in their negativity, or if it's not something I match up to, it's just not my opinion. That doesn't mean you're a bad person for saying it, and it doesn't make me a bad person for not agreeing with you. We just didn't mesh up on that. And
even further past that, when I am critiquing it, I'm not thinking about you.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, my intention's not to hurt.
That would be vain if I were to think that because I'm associated with a character that you are referencing me. That's a weird sense of ownership to a character that people have.
Well, and that's what I was kind of curious about, is because we all do. Fandom is very much a part of lots of our identities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it's me who likes horror movies or the person that does like whatever the thing that you're into, it does get to be where we perceive it to be a part of ourself. Is it really a part of ourself? Is it a part of our identity? And how much is your identity actually connected to yourself, you know?
This is an important discussion on why the nerd community is looked down on, because we're viewed as childlike. And I think the reason for that is because there's a difficulty in separation, where I understand that the inner child in me, I love the X-Men because I was bullied horribly as a child. And it was seeing that people who were bullied horribly for things they could not control, instead of responding to the bully, still tried to save them. And it was that idea of, even as a child, I could see you are in control of what you do. You can't blame anyone else. You are responsible for your actions. And that anyone who complains about politics being in comics, anyone who complains about social issues, apparently has no idea how comics actually work.
Right.
Stan Lee had always talked about equality issues, had always talked about social issues. X-Men being one of the big ones. That was my love as a kid. And yet, as an adult, I can step back and go, it's a comic. It's a story. It's not real. I can take the valuable lessons that they're trying to teach and bring it into my life. But if you say something negative about Nightcrawler, who is my personal favorite, okay, well, you just didn't like that character. That's fine.
And not any reflection of the person who is a fan of it.
No.
Right.
And we need to be able to do that. We can be in touch with our inner child and be adults. No one's saying you have to grow up and be boring. Just don't be the dickish kid.
Yeah.
Love the character, understand not everyone is going to, or be able to separate. Take the lessons, grow with it. Love Spider-Man. Dress as the character if you want, but don't expect everyone to understand.
Right.
Move along.
And have the humility to just acknowledge, again, at the end, like I said a minute ago, it's like none of us are the be-all, end-all of, like, trendsetters or something like that. It's like everybody's so dramatically different in some ways. You know, people's personal preference, they vary wildly. Some people like sushi, some people don't. You know?
Even with the same character, you could have one person who loves one writer and an artist and another person who hates it.
That's a good point.
And on that, you can also be the person who has no idea about any of the artists and the writers. You just know you like the pretty
Batman
pictures and the stories. And you will have that person where if you do not know every single writer, if you do not know who they are, you are not a real fan. And that's a term I hate. Real fan.
It's disgusting.
You don't get to decide that. That doesn't give you some magical, nerdy gold star that's going to appear on your shirt. You don't get accolades from the writer for being a dick to someone, for not knowing the ins and outs of a character.
100%.
And I will go through and I will try to memorize all this information. I just have a really bad memory. My first comic was Ghost Rider. I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in that comic except he was strapped to a table.
Flame on his head.
No. Nope.
No, what?
Nope. He was strapped to a table and they were doing experiments on him. And I remembered as a kid, oh my God, they can do that with drawings? Like, I had never seen anything like that before. Until I saw anime.
Me and you were in the same age category, I think. Because I loved the Ghost Rider, X-Men, like all early 90s stuff. It was like all extreme. It was like Venom was super cool.
Yes.
Maximum Carnage, like, what was that? Oh, Lethal Protector was the storyline. But like that little cluster of early 90s comic books, like all the like really rad looking characters.
So full story on that. I wasn't allowed to read the comics, okay? My brother had bins of comics, and I was sick a lot as a kid. So I would sneak in his room, and I would start reading them. So I was, like, looking at the door and, like, flipping through them and looking like, oh, my God, is he home yet? And so I would get as much information. But he also had, like, these amazing posters on his wall. My mom was actually, like, even though we were a conservative family, she was very supportive of his love of stuff. So she would, like, take his pin-up pictures of Lady Death, who's sitting there like this, and she would like put them on poster board for him and like help him hang them up. And as a mom, I'm like, it's a little bit weird, but cool. And I would sit in his room when he was gone, and I would be like trying to draw because I didn't know you could draw women like that. Like I didn't know that things could be so round. And it fascinated me, and it made me want to draw too. And that's another way that comics influenced me. I may not have been like the biggest fan of the Lady Death stories. I may not have been able to read them because my brother never actually owned any, but the artwork moved me.
100% the same.
And really any of that particular comic line, Chastity, all of them, the artwork, Purgatory, yeah, that was the forbidden fruit, like, ooh, it's a demon girl. Any
Not familiar
of those.
with that, but I know Lady Death and Vampirella.
Vampirella is another really good one. And I may not have read their comics, but their images stood out to me. And as a young woman, it actually felt empowering, not, oh, look, she's being dressed up for male fantasy. The storylines might do that, but the art itself captivated me. And I can appreciate the characters for that. I love it for that. So even if you don't know the stories ins and out, even if you don't know every single artist and writer, if you do, kudos. But if you don't, as long as you felt something, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
Because it is a good feeling. So,
You know it's a really hard fandom?
what?
Game of Thrones fans. They are brutal.
You know what I loved about originally watching Game of Thrones? So I didn't watch the show for the longest time. I used to love when I knew an episode was coming out because I would just turn comments on and I would watch the book fans and the show fans just go at each other. And I'm like, I look like that Michael Jackson gif.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating to me, and I think you had to be, someone worded it really well, you had to be first generation Game of Thrones fan to be a part of that, because I went to watch it, and after all the controversies that surrounded episodes, I do have trigger moments. Mine are anger, where when I see certain scenes, I get angry, and I will just, it's not pretty.
That's the point, though, right?
So, well, it is,
Okay.
but once again, mountains out of molehills. Because I went to watch those scenes, and I'm like, my heart rate's going up. I'm like, here it comes. It happens. I'm like, that's it. You guys seriously created this whole big issue out of that, which you're supposed to get angry about. One, don't use that as a sales point because that's gross.
Yeah.
It's historic. If you actually read history, no, it was not considered normal and not okay. People were punished for doing that. That whole idea of, well, rape is just a... No. Stop normalizing it. Don't. So that bugged me when I finally watched the show, that people had painted this huge picture of it, and it was... Oh. Someone described it best as the first season of Game of Thrones, watch 10 minutes of The Hobbit and 5 minutes of porn, and you've got the first season of Game of Thrones.
Pretty fair.
And I didn't love it.
Game
Everyone's
of
like, oh,
Thrones?
you love D&D, you're gonna love it. Stop telling me what I'm gonna love. I'm probably not gonna like it if you do that. So I watch it and I'm like, okay, well, I won't die if I watch another episode. And all these people, oh, you like Daenerys. No.
Really?
No.
Oh, no.
Cersei, no, I kind of want her to fall in a well and break both of her legs. The characters I identified with were Brienne and Arya.
No, yeah.
Because they're not involved in any relationships. They fight. Brienne isn't accepted.
Both of them are no ladies, also.
I love them.
Yeah.
So I finally found connection with them, but a lot of the characters, I'm told, you're going to love them. You should cosplay them. I have this rule, I won't cosplay anyone I don't like.
Oh, interesting.
Or a fandom I don't know. It doesn't matter how popular it is. For example, people are going to get mad at me. I'm not a Sailor Moon fan. Right? So when Captain Marvel comes out, everyone sends me that photo. I love that picture, but I think it would be insulting if I were to dress as that character, because if you're a Sailor Moon fan, I want you to do that. That's your fandom. That is a beautiful connection between the two fandoms. You should do that.
Wait, what am I missing here?
So let's say there's a character from a show that someone thinks I should cosplay because they think I'd be good at it. If I'm not a fan of it, I'm not going to do it. I feel that's insulting to the fans of it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
okay.
if you're a fan of Sailor Moon and you wanted to dress as that character, the Captain Marvel Sailor Moon, do it. I'm not going to, because that's your fandom. I want to see you shine.
So there was a picture of a Captain Marvel Sailor Moon.
Well, Brie Larson had talked about that's what inspired her.
Oh, so that's what
an artist did a photo of it, and it's beautiful, and everyone started sending it to me saying, "Your next cosplay," and I'm going.
I see.
I'm trying to find. I didn't want to say no. I'm not a fan of Sailor Moon. It was thank you. That's a beautiful picture because it was beautiful art. If I see a Sailor Moon cosplayer that's stunning, I'm not going to say, I don't like Sailor Moon, but I like this.
Yeah.
That's a crappy thing to say.
It's like a sideways compliment.
Right? So I will still share it, and I will say, this is beautiful. They worked hard on this. Same thing with Game of Thrones. You know, I may not like Daenerys, but I love seeing people cosplay her because they felt empowered by her. But I had so many people trying to get me to do characters from that show, and I'm like, I won't cosplay the ones you want me to. I'm telling you that now.
Like, Game of Thrones is like one of those funny things where like it's like you have to invest in them, but how can you force somebody to watch something they don't like? It's like, oh, trust me, when you get to season 5
I hate
or whatever,
that.
It's like that's 50 hours of my life.
So we'll take. Did you ever watch Penny Dreadful?
Okay. But I'm familiar.
I love that show, but there's a character I can't stand in it. I've watched it several times, and I hated every time I would mention that I was watching the show, people commenting. And I would say, I still don't like so-and-so character. And people would say, well, just watch it a couple more times through and you'll like it. And I'm like, stop telling me what I will and will not like.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Or, well, the first season sucks, but the second season you'll love it. That's what happened with me in Torchwood. I was told, well, just keep watching. I was like, I'm going to watch anyway, but quit telling me I'm going to like something.
Yeah.
It's like
100%.
People will come to me and ask, hey, you know, I decided I wanted to get into Doctor Who. What episode should I start with? I'm not going to do well, here's where you need to start. I will say, here's what happened with me. Maybe try that. Because if I overhype something and it doesn't live up to the expectation.
It'll destroy it so fast.
And that's who I am. I hate overly hyped stuff. We're just now watching Lucifer.
Okay.
Because we had to wait for the hype to die down. There's a few shows where we're really glad we waited till the hype died down. Not because your love of something ruined it, but I just needed to get to it in my own time.
Yeah.
I've been like that since I was a kid. I hated boy bands.
Yeah.
So...
I will actively hate shit just because other people love it. I'm that guy. Not really, but I remember when Breaking Bad was out, it was like, you guys can have that for now, and then I went and saw it years later because I just didn't want to be a part of the thing, you know?
Yeah, we still haven't finished it because we're at this point, it's like, we really like it, but watching it's kind of like rubbing sandpaper on your skin. It's like, I love this.
Yeah.
Because it's so dark and so gritty. And that's another issue with fandoms, are people who celebrate bad guys. Like, oh, I identify with them so much. It's like, you realize they wrote them in such a way to where you're supposed to view them as a life lesson, right? Like the Rick and Morty fandom. They're a how not to be. You know this, right? But you have that edgelord mentality of, oh, I connect with them. And it's, you might want to check yourself into a clinic.
It's like, how far can you push this character before the audience turns on them completely while still absolutely learning? It's a cautionary tale.
But
you know what I mean?
People view it as, if I don't love this character, then I'm not part of the meme generation of, oh, yeah, I totally connect with him for this. And you have the writers going, what? Stop. There was a College Humor video about that, about Rick and Morty trying to break up with its fan in couples therapy. And the fans going, but I love you. And Rick and Morty, it's a black bodysuit with Rick and Morty on its face going, this is what I'm talking about. You're not supposed to like me.
Yeah, right.
And I feel fans are just like that with stuff where they love the wrong things. They're missing the messages.
And Harley Quinn relationship goal thing from Suicide Squad. Yikes. Same kind of deal, though.
I've had people, I just don't understand why people don't like it. I'm like, you're the same people who celebrate Hades and Persephone, though. Where if you actually know the story, instead of the little webcomic, you would know it was her uncle and he kidnapped her.
Right. Yeah.
And there's stories where she was just absolutely miserable and they just fought all the time. It wasn't romantic. But we have this weird sense of wanting to warp things into something positive instead of taking what's positive and loving it. Like, I'm weird because I don't love the eccentric characters that a lot of people do. I like more of the Captain Americas and things like that. Not because I'm a stick in the mud, but I love the heroics. I love seeing people doing good, not because they're getting anything from it, but because they know it's benefiting others instead of, look, did you see I did a thing and I threw glitter? I don't appreciate that. And it makes me feel isolated sometimes, which is why some of the fandoms that have come out, some of the characters that have finally taken center stage, for the niche group of us, especially women, where we're made to feel like we have to love those eccentric characters. Oh, I'm so psycho. And we're going, that's not healthy. It's nice to have something that we can draw on, that we can use as an example, that we can say, finally, I can connect with this. It is a good feeling.
No doubt.
If you like the psycho characters, that's great, but please understand that there's supposed to be cautionary tales like Harley and Joker. As a 9-year-old, I understood that the whole reason the relationship didn't work was they're bad guys, therefore they can never be gifted something as precious as love. It will always be something twisted and warped and dark. And that's a cautionary tale.
Yeah,
that's what it was supposed to be. And I still loved Harlequin as a kid, understanding that.
Yeah.
When I first cosplayed her, no one knew who she was. And then it blew up. And I was troubled by seeing they loved the aesthetic, but they didn't know the underlying cautionary tale. They just knew, oh, I like this artwork. That is one of those few times where you do kind of need to know the backstory, because otherwise you're celebrating something that shouldn't be celebrated.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
it's kind of crazy she was birthed out of that animated series from the 90s.
And she became so, huge. Did you see the one where Batman was a vampire? The cartoon?
No. Maybe I forgot about it.
If you get a chance, I forget what it's called, and I'm sure you guys will comment and, let me know. I ran across it by accident, and he's going through, this funhouse, and she's like a serial killer.
Really?
It's so beautifully warped. They're monsters.
You gotta send me a link to that.
It's amazing. And she's got, her dead family on a couch. Spoilers.
What?
And yeah, it's
crazy.
So warped. And I was like, I surprisingly kind of love this. And at the end, he's defeating her, and he just vamps out because he's Batman and bites her, and she's screaming. I'm like, oh my god, what is this? I need to see the rest of it.
It's madness.
It is.
Holy cow.
I love different interpretations of characters. See, not a stick in the mud. It can be fun, but once again, it's for fun, not I'm going to live my life by how this character behaves.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you were the best. This has been fun.
Aww.
Now I've enjoyed this.
We've covered so many different topics.
How many hours do you think we've been going? We'll find out shortly. Do you feel like we got anything else we need to touch on? How can they find you on social media?
Well, if you're wanting to talk to just Anna, I don't know you, so probably not. But Hythrall is my cosplay page. I love interacting with people there. I post a lot of articles, especially dealing with fandom, just going over how we deal with stuff as fans, and just a bunch of stuff there. Also, same on Instagram. I don't do Twitter much, honestly, because it's just
ads and toxicity.
Too much.
Yeah.
Instagram is a place to find me. Facebook under Hythrall. That's another good place to find me. And it's or check out Gulf Coast Lightsaber.
Definitely.
Gulf Coast Saber Training. I'm still getting used to it. If you want to join us on Sundays.
You notice how unsure I was about that at the beginning. I knew y'all had changed the name, and I was I'm
still getting used
to
it. I'm still getting used to it. It was just one of those. It was so funny because the day we decided we were changing the name, the day we decided we wanted to do more in the way of competitive work and do more of legitimate work with this, the next day that French thing happened.
Oh,
the French team. And I got tagged 300 times.
Of course.
Didn't mind a single one. The only thing I disliked was the video all these news groups were using because it was inaccurate. Just a small little pet peeve, but I loved the sudden interest in it, and it felt like a shining light saying, see, you made the right choice. It is now recognized. So Gulf Coast Saber Training. But But yeah, if you want to find me on social media, Instagram and Facebook.
There you go. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, take just a second to smash that little thumbs up button. It really helps my fragile self-esteem. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the terrible content, all you got to do is subscribe. All right, until next time, and on behalf of both of us, be terrible.